Well, good morning, everybody. We're letting people in. Our guest today is Representative Bob Freeman, state representative from District 56. He is my state representative. So, Bob, thanks for being on this morning. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Sure. And there's a lot of attention to this one today because we're going to talk about redistricting and redrawing the line. So I assume you're doing this from home today. Is that right?
I'm actually at my office. So,
oh, you're in your office?
Yeah, I had a soccer game this morning and ran over here to do this. And we've got softball, soccer again later this afternoon. So it's a
thank you for making
Saturday.
Time. I was just looking because I saw the Tennessee poster in the back, and it looks like you have some good windows in your office.
I do, yes.
All right. What do you look out on?
Look at the backside of the mall. So we're on Bedford Avenue, right behind the mall in Great Hills.
Okay, I got it. Okay. So you're not in your house office. You're in your
I'm at my
business office.
Yeah, where I make a living.
That's what threw me off.
Yeah.
So I've been in your state office as well, which is and I love what they did to the Cordell Hall building. And I thought that was a really good idea. You know, there was talk at one point about tearing it down or destroying it, and then they put some money in. What a great building! What a great office to be in. And you all came out from underneath the ground, and you actually came out into the open.
It is the one comment that I've heard from a lot of people that have been down there for longer than me is that we're kind of separated from everybody in our own offices, so there's less kind of intermingling, specifically across party lines, because they kind of have us all separated by party, and then anyway, so we don't really see each other as much as what I've heard they used to. So I'm not sure if that's great, but the offices are physically significantly nicer than they
Yes. So I was, I spent many years down in the legislative plaza, before they moved into the Cordell Hall, working for the speaker, and a different feel. Everybody was underground. Never really liked that all that much, because you could, particularly on busy days, you drive in to the parking garage, particularly during the winter when it was still dark outside. You get there early, and you'd go in, and you would never really have a chance to leave. You'd be busy all day, and then you'd leave like at 7 o'clock, and it would be dark outside. It's like, what happened to the day?
Yeah.
So anyway, I do like your offices. I do. I think your point is well taken about intermixing and being around, and we'll start with that. We'll get started right now, because that's, I think, going to be a question about how these lines are redrawn. Our guest today, everybody, is Representative Bob Freeman, state representative from District 56. Very well liked. I only hear really good things about you, and that's from both sides. So, and that's a good thing. We have a couple of people on the call today. Elected officials. Our county clerk, Brenda Wynn, is on. Judge Anna Escobar is on. Welcome, Judge Escobar. And Councilmember John Rutherford is on. So welcome all those. And if I see anybody else popping in, I'll call them out. Our guest today, Bob Freeman. Let's go ahead and start. We're gonna. I have someplace I have to be at 11, so we're gonna have to end about 20 minutes till. So we're gonna get right to questions. But I will ask my most famous question to everybody, which I always ask, and that is a little bit about yourself. How did you get to be our illustrious state representative? Where are you from, and how did you get to this point?
Well, again, thanks for inviting me. I love that you're doing this, and I've been on the other side of several of these, so I'm glad to be a guest. So I've lived in Nashville my whole life. Grew up in and around where I currently serve, and the area that I currently represent. And if I'm being totally honest, I just got tired of nonsense arguments and partisan arguments, and not really people accomplishing a whole bunch. And I've heard a couple of different elected officials say it, but the work in the middle is where the work gets done. And that's kind of how I've always been. I'm unapologetically a Democrat, but you know, I represent as many Republicans as I do Democrats, and I think we're going to see that opportunity as we get into the redistricting. But I think that having people represent the real people of the state and their district as opposed to a party makes for better legislation, you know, maybe more thoughtful consideration of other legislation that normally you wouldn't see if you have these highly partisan districts. And anyway, so I decided to run and won. So I'm now in the first year of my second term, and it's been a great honor. I've been able to pass some pretty good legislation, some pretty meaningful legislation, you know, giving more support for adults and children struggling with dyslexia, passing a bill requiring rape kit tracking, which we weren't doing in Tennessee. I passed some PACE financing, which is property assessed clean energy, which is hopefully going to be a way that in the future we allow for seniors to age in place and gentrifying in neighborhoods to get more financing to improve their homes. And I've really enjoyed the process. Similar to I think you, or my interactions with you, is you get and appreciate and understand that these roles are not about, you know, us. It's about helping the people. We're doing a job, and I enjoy that process.
Well, again, every people who talk about you and your work are very appreciative and talk about how easy you are to work with, and that you do try to figure out how to make all this stuff work. Your district, and again, I live in it, used to be represented by Beth Harwell.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a mix. And that's kind of how it's always been. I think, particularly, I mean, I ran from this area. You represent everybody. And then you try to make it work. So tell me, before we get into the redistricting part, you get along with pretty much everybody, at least it appears on the just looking at it. I ran into a guy who's a state representative from Memphis, a Republican, and he talked about what a great guy you are. I mean, so from the outside, it looks like everybody fights all the time. Tell us how you try to get along with everybody up there.
Wow. Well, first and foremost, thank you for saying that. That's very kind. It's an intentional act on my part. There is no reason that we have to argue. We can disagree, and I greatly dislike many of their policies. But you know, I try to be empathetic and see where they're coming from and see if I can help educate. And sometimes it's a purely political decision on either side, and those you're not gonna really be able to negotiate your way out of. But you know, I look at some of the stuff that we end up arguing about. If you were to ask the average person, what did the state legislature do this year? What were the best and worst bills? And inevitably, they would all say the top, you know, 2, 3, 4 most partisan, you know, bills that were passed or that were debated. But you know, we then passed another 1,000 some odd bills that have everything to do with how people make a living, how they apply for unemployment benefits, how they you know, how school funding is taken care of, how the split from county and city monies flow. And so I've kind of found that if you concentrate on the stuff that's important but isn't extremely partisan, that you can get some meaningful work done, and you can do it without really giving up your ideology. But you just you know when to argue. It's like sitting around the family dinner table. If you know somebody's a huge Alabama fan, you're just not going to talk about it. And so that's kind of where I've landed on a lot of this stuff. And it's all, it's all personal interactions. Politics is an extremely interactive medium, right? We're all talking to each other to try and convince that we need to do one thing or another. And it's significantly easier to do that if people don't dislike you. So
I think that's very well said. And I like the way most people, again, either watch the news or read in the paper the fighting and the big controversial stuff. But, I would guess 90 to 95% of the stuff that you all pass is just passed. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's not as much now, but I remember most of the votes are, 98, 99 to nothing. I mean, they just keep going. You have a consent calendar, sort of like the council.
Yes.
We have a 40-page calendar, and all the votes are for it, with no exceptions, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3 bills on that calendar.
Right.
And those are the ones that get the attention because those are the ones where people fight.
That's exactly right. And that's the exact same issue with us. And there are a lot that are on our consent calendar that, it takes a lot of work to get that consensus. And to me, that's where the bulk of the work gets done, is doing the hard, the non-sexy, the Twitter worthy work. But it matters. It matters to, those are the kitchen counter, kitchen table, whatever you want to call it, conversations that people have, how they're gonna make a living, how they're gonna enjoy their community, how they're gonna take care of their aging family. And it's extremely important, and it deserves to not be hyper politicized.
Well, speaking of that, let's talk about redistricting. Every 10 years this happens. The council districts are being looked at right now. I think we're going to have our maps come out this coming week. I haven't seen them, but the planning department, comes out with their design. Tell us a little bit about how this works in the state legislature. What are you redrawing? And obviously that includes the congressional lines as well.
Sure. Well, it's every 10 years, you do a reapportionment or an apportionment of seats. Per code, we're required to have 99 state house seats, 33 senators. And because of the one person, one vote rule, requires us to make sure that each representative represents the appropriate amount of people. They're photos from 35, 40 years ago showing how Davidson County used to have 300,000 people, and they had fewer state reps than some of these rural communities did. And it really got away from, again, that one person, one vote. And so we can actually do this more often. We can redistrict more often than every 10 years, but we are required to do it every 10 years. Right now, each of the 99 House members, I'm going to speak House primarily because I'm more familiar, but the process is almost identical in the Senate. Each House member represents about 64,000 people. The new number is 69,868 is the exact number. And so you look at population growth in different areas and which seats need to grow to hit that ideal 69,000 number and which districts need to shrink. And in Davidson County in Middle Tennessee, we've seen massive growth. And this is repeating itself all over the United States, where people are moving to city centers in the suburbs, and rural Tennessee, but rural America is shrinking. And so because of that, we're going to see a shifting of the representation from the East and West Tennessee will have maybe 3 seats. And I'm as much reading the tea leaves as I am telling you the process of my work on the committee. But I think we could see 3 seats picked up in Middle Tennessee, one in Clarksville, Montgomery County, potentially one in Rutherford County, and potentially one in Williamson County. We didn't grow quite enough in Davidson County to get our 11th seat back. If you do the math, we're about 10.25 something seats for Davidson County. So we really can't do it. The process is it's much more complicated than people think. We've got to have 99 individual districts. And when you move one, it affects the next one. You got to keep moving around. We've got, our state boundary. We can't go outside the state, obviously, and pick up other seats. We can only split 30 counties. They try to keep whole counties if possible. And if you don't, you can only split that county once.
And why is that? Why can you not split a county?
Well, it was put in there again for the one person, one vote, but also to keep a real, issue of gerrymandering seats. I brought it up originally. I think that great representation is when you have, a real cross section of the community. And if we have these seats that are exclusively, if you pack all of the Democrats into one seat and pack all the Republicans in another, you never really have an ability to have a need to reach across the aisle. Right. And so anyway, so that just allows us to not have to split a bunch of counties in half and have, say Williamson County or even Davidson County, and we'll get into the congressional stuff. Davidson County in the congressional seat, it really doesn't make sense for them to come in and, do a 4-way cut and cut Davidson County in 4 pieces and then draw the majority of the population outside of our city. And so we also have a rule in Tennessee that they have to be reasonably compact and contiguous. So you can't represent, one and have it, wholly encompassed in another area. So it has to be all compact. Okay. But there's no requirement for it to be partisanly even. There's no requirement for it to be, so many Democrats, so many Republican seats. But then we have to also follow the federal Voter Act rules, and so we're going to have several majority minority districts, which we are currently existing, will likely remain, even with the reduced African American population in Davidson County. I think those seats will probably still remain majority minority, which is 54 and 58, I believe.
Okay. So let me ask you this, and Judge Amanda McClendon has gotten on. How much say, you mentioned, is there a committee that is drawing this thing up or trying to come up with this? And are you on that committee?
Yes, there is a committee and I'm on the committee. I think it's 12 members. They've split us up into 3 grand divisions, and somebody from West is doing middle, somebody from East is doing West, and somebody from West is doing East. And so what the process will be is we will get maps submitted. Anybody listening today, anybody that you talk to can submit a map. It can go through any member, not just a member of the committee, but any member of the State House or Senate for consideration. The only thing that they're asking, again, because of the complications of shifting lines, is that whoever submits it submit a 99 district House map, 33 district Senate map, and the congressional maps. You need to do it all. And they're free tools. Dave's Redistricting is a great free tool that you can use to draw these maps. But so what this committee will do is we will review the maps, and we will make a suggestion. and then that suggestion will be put in the form of a bill, and then probably come end of January, 1st of February, after there's a public comment period, the House and the Senate will vote on it, and those will be the new districts beginning, I guess that day. I guess whenever the enacting date. So it'll probably be in July, or it could be November, and then everybody that runs will run in their new seats.
So do you represent, because this was a question for the council, do you continue to represent, it may pass immediately, but then do you immediately go represent this new district, or does the actual switching of it happen at the next election?
So the actual switching of it will happen in the next election. And part of the reason that we want to get it in early is to give an opportunity for if districts shift, change, whatever, for people to have an opportunity to run. And right. It's not a secret ploy by us to protect our seats for another 2 years. We want to make sure and set the seats, and then let the community decide who they think is going to be best to represent that new district.
Okay, so tell me, and these are questions you may or may not be able to answer yet, because I assume that they're still working on this as a committee. If certain areas of the state lose a seat because the growth is maybe in Middle Tennessee, so let's say 3 seats are going to have to come from someplace else. That means 3 members who were representing a district no longer have a district. Is going to switch. How does that play? Because I know there's different ways to do it. I know that sometimes you can find those who are retiring, and that you kind of work around that, but sometimes you don't have a choice.
Yeah, I mean, some of those decisions we'll see how they work out in the coming months, but the technical answer is you can't take a seat. I mean, whatever happens, I will live in Davidson County, I will live in Tennessee. There will have to be a seat that I can run for around me. The variables are there going to be 2-3 other existing members that are in it, or and that's really it. And so, for example, there's a very high likelihood, and this is again me reading the tea leaves, no information that I'm getting on the inside from this committee, but there's a high likelihood that we are going to potentially go from 14 to 13 state house seats in Shelby County. They saw not the growth they needed to pick up with the new ideal district sizes, but they saw an actual population decline, meaning that there were fewer people that were in the census in 2020 than there were in 2010. And so they will likely go from 14 to 13. And if that happens, those 14 seats will be absorbed into 13 seats. And so there is a member that is currently serving in the state house that will be absorbed into somebody else's existing district. And those two will have to decide, does one of them want to retire? Do they want to run against each other? And it's going to be extremely difficult.
So let me ask you another difficult question, because I've been around when some of this stuff has happened. How do you, how do you explain to the member or their district, or how do they figure out they have to go from 14 to 13. How do they figure out which districts they're going to put against each other? I mean, which members, because some people will say, well, they're just picking on those particular people.
Yeah.
Maybe so, I don't know. But obviously you're also having to figure out how to make the whole thing work.
Well, and therein lies the task that is in front of everybody, and that is make sure that everybody understands what is happening, that their constituents are being heard, that community members and groups are having meetings and fighting for the preservation of their seat or the boundaries of what they believe their seat should be. that, you know, communities of interest remain together, remain communities of interest, that, you know, we don't have, you know, these long, thin, completely obviously gerrymandered seats that are meant to pick up partisan voters, not communities of interest. And so that's where it's going to be. That's where it's going to happen. But to answer your question directly, I don't know. I don't know how that process is going to work. I've never been involved in it.
Yeah.
But it's going to happen. It's going to happen on the Democratic side. It's going to happen on the Republican side, and it's going to be different.
Switch over for a minute, because you were talking about those long gerrymandered things. It's been a while since I looked at the congressional districts makeup in Tennessee, but I remember it used to be who was it? I think it was Marsha Blackburn's district that ran from Nashville to Memphis. I mean, it was
Yeah. My in-laws live in rural West Tennessee, in Brownsville, Tennessee. We lived at the very furthest end of Davidson County, and Marsha did not represent me, nor did she represent my in-laws, but she was, you know, within an eighth of a mile on either side. And those are not communities of interest, right? Those are the wants and needs of a Williamson County are totally different than a Haywood County.
So how do you, with the idea that you want communities of interest, and again, you weren't there when that happened, but you're now sitting there watching this, how do you make the argument? It's like, don't do that. I'll ask you that one first, and then I'm going to ask you about Davidson County.
Yeah, I mean, I think you say exactly that. I mean, the wants and needs of a community are very specific to that community. And, you know, I use an example from statewide legislation that we had. You know, we were trying to ban single-use plastics. You know, Nashville was talking about running some stuff through the council, and the state decided they were going to intervene and make it illegal. And I made the argument that what's good for you in say, you know, Collierville is, or you know, Dyersburg, probably a better example, is totally different than what's good for us here in Davidson County. And the week that we were debating this bill was the week that we had a hockey playoff game, we had the NFL draft, and we had, I don't know, a concert downtown. And I think, and you may remember this better, but I think it was almost 2 million people that were going to be in Davidson County, in Nashville during that time. And we were not going to have the ability to limit styrofoam cups or, you know, whatever it was, but it doesn't make sense. It's not a one size fits all. And so you've got to figure out a way to make those arguments appropriately so that, you know, the wants and needs of Davidson County, and I'll jump right into your question, are met. We should not be splitting large city centers, in my opinion. I think that you know, the city of Franklin, which is split, I think by 3, it may be even 4 state house seats, kind of go into the center of Franklin, downtown Franklin. It should be wholly encompassed. If it can, it should be its own seat. And the same for Davidson County, the same for Shelby County, the same for Knox, for Hamilton, for Chattanooga. And that's really where I'm urging community groups to really flex their muscle and really argue that they need representation for their cities. And you know, just like a whole county is represented by one person, we need the same for our cities. And so I'm going to do everything I can to ensure that Davidson County doesn't get split on the congressional level. I would like for us to tighten in our Senate seats and have all of our Senate seats wholly contained, and all of our state house seats. So we have representation that's elected by the people of the community, and the people that we elect are going to represent the interests of that community. And that's done by making sure that your geographic boundaries reflect what you represent.
So tell me, because one of the obvious things that kind of falls out from this discussion is, there's I forget whether it's kind of just the understanding, or if there's something in the law or from a court ruling about particularly trying to keep counties for the state representatives from being, from breaking them up. You try to keep them somewhat contained. Why does that not apply to our congressional seat?
Well, so it's very interesting. We have the ability to have a variance. We can have 10% rule has been upheld as legally allowable, or whatever the term is.
Okay.
And so you can have, a 10% ban up or down in what you represent in state house seats. So for us, that's anywhere from, I think it'd be like 63,000 to 70, whatever it is, 74,000 people. A congressional seat can't. It has to represent the exact number. And so, and it's a nationwide deal. And so they got to pick up what they've got to pick up.
All right, so I'm looking at, I was trying to multiply 69,868 times 99 to figure out how many there are. So you take whatever that is, and we've got 9 congressional seats. So you figure that out. We're not gaining one. I assume we'll stay with 9. But I think the big question for most people here in Davidson County is, we have a congressman, and who I happen to like very much. I I would hate to see Davidson County split up, as has been suggested, into quadrants, so that we end up with 4 congressmen representing one major city in Tennessee or in this country. And we could have 4 congressional folks that live way away from our city, but are making decisions on our behalf. So I guess the question is, how likely is that? And if people are concerned about it, how do they get the message in? And then I assume there's always court actions that can come if that happens.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'll start in reverse. Okay. We will absolutely submit a plan. We, being the Democratic caucus, will absolutely submit a plan that keeps Davidson County as one seat, and doesn't split us up into 3 or 4, whatever the number is. And so that'll be the first step. If there is any legal action, you can prove that by splitting that up, that you are not following the Voter Rights Act, and that you were taking the ability for a minority group to have their views reflected in the legislature. And that's one opportunity. But I think that it's absolutely a fear, and it's absolutely something that's being discussed. And the national party has sent an edict to every state saying, figure out how to find us a seat. And this is Davidson County is one of those that they think that we could potentially cut around and figure out how to get how to pick a seat up. And so what we need to do as a city, as residents, as voters, is we need to make sure that our voice is heard, that we don't want our county to be split up. And I think we can have allies outside of Davidson County that like the idea of having Davidson County fully encompassed, and all of the donut congressional seats around us don't have to deal with Davidson County residents. And so I think that there is some pressure that we can do. And the other one that I'm really going to fight for, and that we've already seen so far, and I hope it continues, is for this process to be open and transparent, and that these decisions are made in an open forum, and that the community has an opportunity to hear what we're saying and then weigh in. And so far, that's what's happened. We just need to make sure that it continues.
So let me ask you this, and some of these calls, I mean, this call is so interesting, and I'm running out of time. So let me ask you this, because we may want you to come back on as we get a little closer to this actual process.
Sure.
So if people are interested, and again, I mean, whether you like our congressman or whether you want a new congressman, whatever, I think there's interest, obviously, on behalf of people who live in this county, that they want somebody who represents Nashville. They don't want their congressman living 300 miles away and just happens to have a corner split of the county. It's better for the city to have somebody who's representing our interest. So if people want to do a little research, if they want to kind of understand how this works, and then if they want to get a message across, what would you advise them to do?
Wow. That's a great question. The sad reality, or maybe not sad to whoever you ask, but for me, and I think Davidson County resident, is elections have consequences, and the Republican supermajority in the state of Tennessee gets to decide exactly what these seats need to look like, and so part of it is we really don't have any leverage points. If they decide not to be open and transparent, they don't have to, and they can design, split, cut, whatever the word is you want to say, these seats in any way they see fit. But I think that where our real leverage point is that Davidson County is the financial backbone of our state. We provide the majority of the resources, the majority of the tax revenue, and if we are not able to have I keep using the term, but our wants and needs represented, that could go away. And I really believe that everybody understands that. And so that to me is our real leverage point, is that, they don't want the golden goose that is Nashville, or the goose that lays the golden egg rather, to go away. And so that's what I think everybody needs to make sure and pay attention, and just be engaged, be involved, call the speaker's office, call any representatives that you know, call and email the members that are on the committee, and just say, listen, I understand you're going to do what you want to do, but let us represent ourselves.
All right. So unfortunately, last question today, and that is, if people do want to follow this process so that they can determine if they want to send something in between now, end of September, and when you all come back in session in January, what's the best way for people to follow kind of what's going on?
So there is, on the Tennessee State Legislature's website, there is a redistricting thing, and can I send it to you?
Yeah, and
okay.
Then we'll send it out. Sure,
I'll send it to you, and then you can send it out. And so I'll explain a little bit of what's in it, and then kind of go from there. So it has the population growth and decline. So kind of what seats need to grow, what seats don't. It's got all of the rules, and it's very specific in what we can and can't do, and how this process needs to work. It's got some best practices that are in there. It's got some PowerPoints that we've shared with the rest of the committee members in the community, and then it's got a link for a calendar. And every time we have a meeting, it'll be publicly noted. Everybody, it's public information. It's a public meeting, and it will be streamed live from this link, from this website. And so you can really stay up to it, or up to speed on exactly what we're doing through that process. Also have a newsletter that I send out. And if anybody'd like to email, it's rep.bob.freeman@capitol.tn.gov. And I'll give updates on it. But you're going to see in the next, 2, 3, 4 months, people are going to be sick and tired of this, because that's all we're going to be talking about. And if anybody is not aware that we're going through a redistricting process, it's going to be because they were purposefully ignorant to it, because we're going to make sure that everybody's aware. And then all these different community groups are going to have meetings. And so just stay involved, stay engaged, pay attention, and most importantly, vote, because it's important.
Representative, thank you for being on. Thank you for being so honest and taking the time out of looks like the sun has gone down, but hopefully you can go back to some of the softball or whatever soccer games that you're watching. I know there's a lot of football on TV today. We may want you back. Well, we want you back regardless, but we may want you back on this issue as we head into January. Very important information. I appreciate everybody watching. Bob, again, thank you for being on this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Sure. We will not be here next week. We'll take a week off. We'll be here in 2 weeks. And so keep an eye out, and please join us in 2 weeks. Everybody have a great weekend. Be safe. Bob, good luck in the games that you're getting ready to go watch. I hope they all turn out well.
Thanks a bunch. Talk to you soon.
Everybody be safe.
Thank you.